Don't let anyone gaslight you on this next point. Donald Trump is unpopular and he is politically toxic. And the backlash to Donald Trump's increasingly politically toxic MAGA brand has now gone global. While many of Donald Trump's right-wing allies in Europe have reached a breaking point very recently. The Washington Post reports today that, quote, pro-Trump politicians from London to Rome who were already squirming around the Europe bashing, the president's punitive tariffs, threats to seize Greenland, and the surprise attack on Iran have found starker red lines in Trump's conduct of the war, his genocidal rhetoric, and verbal broadside against Pope Leo XIV, the first American pontiff. The Washington Post adds this, quote, the same party leaders who cheered Trump's hard line on immigration and his culture war offensives now find themselves repulsed by his military interventions in Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. Facing a shrinking group of international allies, Donald Trump sought to even further alienate himself by dragging the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, into his feud with Pope Leo. On that, the New York Times writes this, quote, after suffering major political setbacks because of her association with Donald Trump, who is deeply unpopular in Italy and seen as the cause of rising gas prices there, Ms. Meloni seized on an opportunity to extricate herself from a relationship that had grown domestically and internationally poisonous. I want to bring in former ambassador to Russia and international affairs analyst Michael McFaul. The Rev and Paul are still here. So we've been talking, Ambassador, for years now about the fights within countries between autocracy and democracy. It seems that Trump is so toxic that even some of the world's players who fall just on the other side of the autocrat or autocratic-friendly line are now aligning themselves against Donald Trump.
Yes, it's an international trend. It started in Hungary. Let's not get to these other leaders yet until we remind everybody what a fantastic democratic breakthrough this was in Hungary. Viktor Orban was the darling of the MAGA world. He's the darling of Putin. He's been in power for 16 years, eroding democratic institutions, ideologically very close to President Trump. And then he sent his vice president to go campaign for him. By the way, somebody should ask who paid for that trip, and is that within the electoral finance rules of Hungary and the United States? But it didn't work. It was a backfire. And as a result, I think that's giving permission and space for other leaders, like you pointed out, Prime Minister Meloni in particular in Italy, to say, we don't want to be associated with this MAGAism and Donald Trump, especially when he's violating some of the things that they thought they all agreed upon.
Ambassador, what is the greater thing pulling people away from Trump? Is it, I mean, because I think there's a temptation, right, to pull all the lessons that we can to buoy our sort of pro-democracy aims and ambitions. But what is actually pushing people away from people like Orban?
That's a great question. I think it's a real important lesson for many other countries that have elections coming up, including our own. Magyar, who won that election, and his party hardly ever talked about democracy and dictatorship. He talked about two other things: anti-corruption and economic stagnation as a result of the way that Viktor Orban was pushing Hungary away from the EU. Now, of course, those things are interrelated with democratic institutions. But if you look closely, it was a real focus on anti-corruption and a falling economy. That was the essence of it. Magyar himself, remember, was a member of the Fidesz party. This happens a lot, by the way, in democratic breakthroughs when there's a leader that was once part of the coalition and then breaks. Happened, by the way, in Ukraine back in 2004 during the Orange Revolution, same dynamic. But in doing so, the focus was really on anti-corruption. And I think that is an important lesson for other leaders in Europe and here in the United States.
It's so important because the corruption is the thing that more than anything else Trump thinks he's getting away with. I mean, he thinks he is rocking the pocketing of, billions of dollars, standing shoulder to shoulder with all the titans of tech and finance at his inauguration, telling the world that he has all of America's sort of money marching in lockstep with him, and then grabbing for himself and his kids crypto billions and money for, I mean, this to me feels like the most sort of appreciated political vulnerability that he has right now. I want to bring everyone in on this part of the conversation. I have to sneak in a quick break. First, we'll all be right back.